There's a dead bird over there.
See if there's anything in there.
Oh. Oh my gosh. Oh, gross.
We see a piece of plastic there.
Oh.
There's a bigger piece of plastic coming out. Here you have a bird that was alive potentially yesterday, and you look inside and it's just like night and day. And this is an average amount of plastic in this chip.
Plastic, plastic, plastic. Something new, the resin which can be molded by heat and pressure to any shape.
At the dawn of the 20th century, science invented synthetic plastics, and the world would never be the same.
There are plastics in your toaster, in the blender and the clock, in the lamp and in the roaster.
Today, everywhere we go, we are surrounded by plastic. We drink from it, eat from it, wear it, and use it in almost every part of our daily lives. This miraculous invention and its evolution have created a new era of cheap, convenient, and disposable products that have transformed the way we live. And it's hard to imagine what we would do without them.
Plastics is too firmly embedded in modern life.
But plastic is unlike any other substance on Earth for one very specific reason. It never goes away.
What happens to plastic when it gets thrown away?
Because forever it doesn't degrade.
Well, I've never seen it disintegrate.
Where do you think it goes when you throw it away?
Nowhere. It never goes away.
Do you know what plastic is made out of?
Plastic? I don't know.
They melt it down from something.
Any guesses what plastic's made out of?
Wow.
Yes. Does it belong to the animal kingdom? No. The vegetable kingdom? No. Then it's just gonna belong to the mineral kingdom. It's not a mineral either. Oh, a thimble!
Maybe this little thimble belongs to a kingdom all of its own. The fourth kingdom. The kingdom of plastics.
Plastic?
Because plastic is such a perfect creation, it's virtually indestructible. Which means that almost every molecule of plastic ever created is still somewhere on this planet. So if it never deteriorates, where does it go?
Have you heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch?
No, I haven't.
No.
The Great Pacific Garbage, what?
My name is Angela Sun. I've never been much of an environmentalist or what some may call crunchy or granola, but ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by the ocean and everything in it. I grew up on the beaches of California, swimming, snorkeling, then surfing and scuba diving.
With new technology, you can pretty much surf anywhere.
When I got into media and journalism, I was always interested in telling stories that involved the water. So a few years ago, when I heard people talking about this supposed island of garbage floating somewhere out in the Pacific, I was immediately intrigued. I mean, I was used to seeing trash on the beaches and sometimes even floating in the waves. But an island? Despite the fact that there were a few articles that mentioned this island, there were conflicting reports about what it was, where it was, and how big it was. Even people who had heard of it seemed to have different ideas about it.
What is it?
It's an island of trash.
Tiny little micro pieces of plastic.
It's like the size of Texas.
Like that big right there.
Can you walk on it?
I know it exists. I know a little bit about it, but I don't know its origins. Not at all.
If Garbage Island was indeed real, I wanted to see it for myself. As I did more research, I found that there is a tiny piece of land in one of the most remote places on Earth that held the key. It's a difficult place to get to, and even though it's in the middle of nowhere, The area is controlled by the US government, and access to it is restricted. But I wasn't going to give up, so I applied for the necessary permits and permissions. Getting through all the red tape was a process that took nearly 3 years. And just when I thought all hope was lost, everything came together.
Right now we are in a private airport in Honolulu, and we are about to get on board and fly 4 hours on a private charter flight to Midway Atoll right here, which is literally in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a midway point from the west coast of the US and the east coast of Japan.
Only one government plane flies out there every couple of weeks, carrying supplies along with researchers and maintenance workers.
I feel like I'm in a dark sauna.
No cars are allowed here, so transportation is by foot or golf cart. As we drove to our accommodations, I realized right away that getting around this place is harder than it seems.
There are birds everywhere. We're trying to dodge them in the dark. Whoa!
Midway is best known for its instrumental role in World War II. On June 7, 1942, the Allied forces defeated the Japanese and gained control of the Pacific, turning the tide of war. Located at the top of Papahanaumokuakea Marine Monument, it is home to a vast array of wildlife. More than 2 million albatross nest here for part of the year. That's about 70% of all the Laysan albatross in the world.
There's no one in sight except for me and you and the albatross and a whole lot of plastic.
In this small, remote place with very few people, tens of thousands of pounds of garbage wash up on our beaches every year.
Clean it up, so this will be just the accumulation in 4 months' time.
What is this? It's like a melted piece of plastic. It looks like plastic spaghetti. What the heck is a computer monitor doing floating in the ocean in the middle of the Pacific? Check it out. It's got Korean writing on it. And mixed into all of this stuff is bird feathers and bird bones.
We've seen debris that comes from North America, from Asia, from lighters to bottle caps to propane tanks to truck tires.
I can't move it.
That garbage is coming from the big population centers of the world, and it is definitely collecting here in the middle of the Pacific.
It turns out the truth behind Garbage Island is stranger than the myth.
The request is always for a picture of the island of garbage, the trash island, and there is no such island. The debris is dispersed. I mean, let's talk about the largest single feature on our planet, which is the North Pacific Ocean.
Captain Charles Moore discovered the garbage patch in the late 1990s and founded the Algalita Marine Research Organization to study it.
Well, ocean basins are like a bathtub. You can think of them that way.
The ocean's currents in the Pacific move in a giant circle known as a gyre, kind of like a slow-motion whirlpool or toilet flushing. So over time, all of the debris that washes into the sea from the coasts of economic giants North America and Asia, or from ships, collect in a centralized zone from somewhere around twice the size of Texas to the size of the entire continental United States. The reason why there aren't any pictures of it is because it's basically invisible. You have to sail through it with a net to know it's there. Most of the debris is found beneath the surface.
No one had ever compared plastic in the ocean to the available food.
Lying near the western edge of the patch, Midway and the Northwest Hawaiian Islands are situated like a fine-tooth comb in the path of the currents, continually collecting huge quantities of plastic and other trash that pass through.
When I first got here, I was amazed that there was so much washing up on the beach.
I thought it was just a hoax because you never could really find pictures of it. You hear something like, yeah, it's a plastic patch 2 times the size of Texas, and you think there's no way, you know, but then you actually see all this plastic wash up.
When you walk through the sand, the majority of it is plastic. It's not coral, it's not organic things, it's plastic pieces.
The future will bring plastic fabrics wondrously fine, shoes more glamorous than Cinderella's. Homes throughout will be bright with color. With many contributions of the kingdom of plastics, dreams like this and many more will become realities.
Seeing all of this plastic in front of me, I wondered, how did plastic become so pervasive in our daily lives? And how did the world become so dependent on it?
It wasn't until the late 1930s that plastics came into their own. All the wealth of the Indies was in enemy hands. Germany, well aware of difficulties in obtaining raw materials, ordered her scientists to develop substitutes. A peaceful America, shaken from its lethargy, took off its coat, rolled up its sleeves, and went to work. But war is a greedy monster. Soldiers must be fed, clothed, housed, and equipped. But how? Our most promising man-made replacement, plastics.
The plastics industry grew from producing a modest 20 million pounds in 1927 to a total of 650 million pounds by 1943. That's an increase of over 3,000%, which exceeded that of any other industry. 85% of that production was devoted to war. The next statement was eerily foreshadowing.
Plastics will play as large a role in peace as they do in war.
Here at the visitor center, they have some of the pieces that have been found on the beach. This is Rocksteady from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So whoever owned this obviously grew up in the 80s. You know, it brings you down memory lane to see all of these objects, but it's sad to see that the stuff that I threw out might have ended up here, and these toys don't go away. Have you ever gotten bit?
No, not so far.
While beachcombing earlier that day, a 12-year-old visiting Midway stumbled upon a most interesting find.
I was beachcombing, looking for plastics and stuff, and I saw this bottle, and what do you know, but there's a letter inside. Dear Finder, what country are you from? When you get this letter, please write back to me. Mark Twain Elementary School, Miss Duncan, 3rd grade, Long Beach, California, 1999.
Can I bring that back for you since I live in LA?
Sure.
And try to find that person for you? It's just a testament of how old this stuff is, that Lewis could find a message in a bottle written over 10 years ago, and how it goes full circle.
Producers have kept putting out more and more of this stuff and expecting that we as taxpayers are going to pick up the cost of cleaning it up.
They're not really talking about what their product actually costs. The $25 million to the taxpayers that is spent every year to clean up the plastic bags and to clean up the mess.
Our plastic comes from oil and gas. 5 of the 6 most profitable corporations in the world are oil and gas companies. Their plan is to make more money. As we're finding out, it's a material that can harm nature. It's just, if you're gonna make it and you're gonna sell it, you should have some plan. We can legislate that. We haven't for good reasons, because you make more money when you're not responsible for the waste.
They can't just make it and say goodbye. They have to create an infrastructure to take them back.
If a business model is working, if it produces billions of revenue, there has to be an incentive for the industry to change, to get out of this mode.
The United States alone will produce 115 billion pounds of new plastic this year. Most of this will be used to make single-use products. A lot of people seem to be telling me that it's all up to us as consumers.
It's mostly consumers' responsibility.
The world is going to produce the goods that consumers demand.
If you don't buy it, they won't make it.
But there's a shift. People are waking up and going, well, it's not all our fault. The whole concept of litter bug is a very convenient, terminology to put the problem onto the consumer. For example, with single-use plastic bags, as they blow, they get windborne. So even if you do throw it in your trash can, or even if it does go in the landfill, there's a chance for them to get into the environment anyways. When it goes into the water, it's a cost to society to clean it up, that's a cost to the environment, that's a cost to future generations, but that's not being reflected in the producer's income statement.
There's just thousands of birds, like as far as I can see, and it just boggles my mind that we are in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific Ocean with the largest colony of Laysan albatross on the planet. Golf cart coming through. Oh no! Yo, what's up? Come on. Excuse me.
Not all of the plastic ends up on the beaches. Fishing nets used to be made of wool or silk, but today, most of them are made from nylon, which is a strong and cheap form of thermoplastic. So when they are lost or discarded, they don't disintegrate. They just stick around and litter the ocean floor, killing marine animals.
Plastic has invaded all levels in the ocean, from the tiniest plankton to the largest cetaceans or whales. The larger animals and even some of the smaller ones get tangled up in plastic and can't feed, can't move, strangle, die. Hundreds of thousands of mammals, millions of fish and seabirds die every year from entanglement in plastic.
I wanted to see how these plastic fishing nets were affecting Midway's coral reef systems, so I hopped aboard a research boat headed out to collect data.
All this is live coral under here, and it's really shallow, so the bottoms of the nets snag on live coral, tear them off, they get caught up in the net, and they keep rolling and rolling over this shallow reef.
So basically it's like a giant tumbleweed in the sea, right?
It just rolls along, grabbing coral.
So why are coral reefs so important? They are the second most diverse ecosystem on this planet. Reefs provide coastal protection, food for millions of people, and life-saving drugs like one for childhood leukemia.
There are thousands and thousands of species on reefs, and each species has a different level in the food chain. That network is supporting all of the life in the sea and ultimately is helping to support human life. Reefs have seen a tremendous decline in the last 25 years.
The team started to collect data from the site, examining the damaged coral. But while we were still underwater, a radio call comes in that another massive new net was sighted in the area.
North 28 degrees, 12.479.
The big net is up here, you see it?
Oh yeah. Have you seen one like this before?
This looks like a really big one.
Looks like it's been a purposely discarded net.
Can you tell where it's from?
Unfortunately, no. It's too big. This boat will sink. It's probably close to a ton, I would guess, just
Really?
or more.
The ladies are swimming around it right now, trying to figure out where the entanglement is, and what we see on the surface, there might be a lot more underneath. There we go. We
saw a number of coral heads broken off. They were still alive, but they were broken off. They're not going to be alive for long. So this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. It's snagged now on 1 or 2 live coral heads. It'll break those off, and it'll continue across the atoll, breaking coral heads as it goes. You just can't leave it behind. You know, you really want to get it in as soon as you can and stop that from happening. It's too dangerous to leave it out there. These are some researchers from University of Santa Cruz that are out here studying the reef as well. These guys were working nearby and offered to come over and put it in their boat.
I never realized until I had to physically pull up a giant fishing net made of plastic materials just how destructive it could be. The net was so big and so heavy, we thought we would never get it into the boat.
We tried to get most of it up there and then sort of rigged it with ropes to hold it in place. Pretty damn heavy. Makes me wonder where the guys are. It's all ladies on that boat. We got it and we're gonna take it back to the shore. Oh my gosh. I can feel the spray.
It's happening on such a large scale. We've removed up to 123 tons in a matter of 4 months. Just seeing the destruction of one, multiply that times a couple thousand, and then you get an idea.
In fact, the UN did a study in 2009 and found that there are an estimated 640,000 tons of discarded fishing nets in the oceans worldwide. And that number is increasing every day.
If reefs are in trouble, the oceans are in trouble. If the oceans are in trouble, we humans are in trouble. Nobody really knows what would happen if we lost all the reefs.
The problem of plastics is twofold. There's the macroplastics, which are the big pieces, and then there's also the microplastics. The smaller the plastic is, it actually means that it's older. So this could have been plastic from the 60s and the 70s. These bits and pieces are actually more harmful than the large macro pieces, because what happens is the plastic will break down from the sunlight. It photodegrades, and these little pieces get digested by the fish and they move up the food chain. What I'm holding right here is less sand and more plastic.
And then there's this whole phenomenon of persistent organic pollutants being absorbed to the plastic.
So what's a persistent organic pollutant? Basically, it's chemical waste that gets absorbed by pieces of plastic and accumulates in the tissues of animals that eat it.
So they become this transport mechanism for toxics in the environment.
If you look at the tissues of marine mammals, or mahi-mahi and swordfish and tuna, you find pollutants in them, the same pollutants on plastic. We're beginning to make those connections.
Fish that we see on our tables at our restaurant fare are now being affected by plastic.
So I filleted this fish thinking I'm going to eat it, and here's what I found. It's full of plastic.
Dr. Marcus Erickson is an activist and researcher. He and his colleagues built a raft out of plastic bottles and floated from LA to Hawaii to draw attention to the plastic debris in the ocean.
The plastic isn't benign. The fish won't pass it. The plastic is full of persistent organic pollutants, things like PCBs, DDT, PAHs, things that are known human carcinogens and endocrine disruptors, things you don't want in your body, but they're in the fish that we eat. I don't want plastic in my sushi.
Marcus and his wife Anna founded the organization 5 Gyres to study and document the world's garbage patches. They've sailed all over the globe to prove that the other ocean gyres also contain high concentrations of plastic.
You got a fish? Yeah. We collected a bunch of small fish, and we're finding increasingly that they're feeding on plastic.
Even in one 2.5-inch long fish, we found 83 pieces of plastic.
Not only are we beginning to find connections between plastic and our food supply, these harmful chemical additives are capable of leaching out into whatever it comes into contact with. One chemical that's been in the news a lot lately is bisphenol A, or BPA. BPA is a compound used to manufacture many kinds of plastic, such as baby bottles, water bottles, sports equipment, the lining of canned food, and household electronics.
Bisphenol A was discovered 7 decades back, and it was already known that it has some endocrine disrupting properties.
Endocrine disruptors are basically chemicals that can mess up your body's internal signaling system. They make hormones go haywire and can cause all kinds of problems, from diabetes to brain disorders and cancer.
Every day, we add estrogen-like chemicals to our body through plastics. Bisphenol A, for example, was originally designed to be birth control. It was originally designed as a hormonal therapy for women. It wasn't quite strong enough for that, so it was put on the shelf. Then some various scientists and formulators figured out that bisphenol A actually could make plastic hard. Nobody asked the question, what will happen when we give bisphenol A to people through this plastic? 93% of Americans are walking around with bisphenol A in their bodies.
Professor Fred Bombsall is one of the leading experts on BPA. He has been studying its harmful effects for over 15 years. He's found that receipt paper, even though it's not plastic, is coated with high amounts of BPA.
We're going to do a study to determine whether bisphenol A comes out of thermal paper, off the surface of thermal paper, onto your hand, and can get through the skin of your hand into your body.
So I volunteered to be one of his first guinea pigs.
No one's ever done this. We know that a lot of the bisphenol A gets off the paper onto your skin. What we don't know is how much of it goes through your skin into your body. That's what we want to find out. We're going to collect your blood, and we're going to determine how much bisphenol A was in your body when you came into the laboratory.
So it will be a total of 20 cc's today.
We have to do 2?
We do 2.
Oh my gosh.
All over. Uncurl your toes.
How much knowledge
am I doing okay?
About your body.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of blood.
There you go.
Then what we're going to do is have you hold a piece of thermal paper for a couple minutes.
You ready to go? Ready? Okay. So go ahead. There you go.
This is what I normally do with my receipts when I get them from the store.
And think about how many times you touch a receipt.
Okay. Now what I do? I think to open your
hand. Open up.
Oh my gosh!
Don't touch anything.
Yeah, don't touch anything.
Is this BPA in my hand?
It sure is. You shouldn't have to worry about touching a receipt paper.
This is true.
Because plastics are in every facet of our lives, we are exposed to these things, and everybody is exposed to them. It's like we're all in the midst of a giant, uncontrolled experiment.
Without your permission, you are being polluted. Is that okay with you?
I think it's just a question of why weren't we told. It bothers me and it makes me angry.
You're okay. I'm just gonna look at it right now.
This is really not fun. After 3 pokes and a lot of resistance from me, this is my blood before and after, and this combined with the urine sample is gonna go to the lab, and then we're gonna get the results in a couple weeks.
Recent studies have shown that BPA can now be found in all of the world's oceans.
We have well over 1 million albatross at Midway. They're incredible flyers. Each one of the adults will fly thousands of miles for each foraging trip for their chick, which is every 7 to 10 days. And so if you add up the number of miles that they're flying in one breeding season, it definitely is many times circling the world. They always come back to the same spot to nest, and they're monogamous, so they typically have the same mate. So they'll wait for their mate to show up, and then they lay their egg, and then the cycle of life continues.
Oh my God! they can pass lighters and plastic along to the chick.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does what it can to monitor the trash situation. John leads teams of volunteers to different parts of the atoll to measure and classify the debris and to clean some of it up. I headed out to one of the beaches with them to size up the situation.
Every piece of plastic you see on the island was brought in here by either an adult albatross and fed to its chick, or it was fed to the chick and they died in place and then they decayed and then you're left with the plastic. So all this plastic was brought in by an albatross. In fact, we estimate that about 5 tons of plastic each year are brought to the whole atoll by adult albatross and fed to the chicks. So it's really significant.
This is a
freshly dead bird. Yep. We could take a quick look just in case and cut it open. It does actually have some stuff in it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, gross.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Fishing line. Oh, look at that big piece of plastic.
Oh my goodness. What do you think that is?
It almost looks like a cap to a permanent marker, something like that.
Oh.
A lot more fishing line coming out there.
Wow. This is average?
Yep, this is probably just an average amount.
We see bellies full of plastic. Could that be an indicator of our future? In some capacity.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, yes. These birds, or at least their parents, they forage on a global scale, forage throughout the Pacific. So they're like our thermometer for the health of the Pacific, which ultimately affects people, not only albatross. So really to see this albatross tells us that the Pacific Ocean, and probably the oceans in our world in general, are in trouble when we see this kind of plastic that's so pervasive in this seemingly natural environment. And this is just an albatross. Just think about every fish out in the ocean might have some level of plastic. Maybe you can't see it, but at the microscopic scale, you could detect it. And then, of course, we're feeding on marine life.
The Earth is covered by over 75% water. With all of this plastic and toxins in the oceans, I wondered, what could we do?
You know, my first reaction was very much like a lot of other people's first reaction, and that was, oh my God, we've got to go clean this thing up.
I frankly haven't seen a decent proposal for how to viably do that without spending a lot of money, a lot of fuel, diesel, and killing a lot of ocean life.
If we're talking about little bits of plastic broken down into tiny, tiny bits, what are we going to do? Strain the entire ocean?
No amount of all the ships in the world, carrying all the nets in the world, going out there pulling stuff up is going to save the sea. Only the sea herself can spit it out, and she'll never get a chance to do that if we keep putting it in.
Frankly, this whole idea that we take all this intended disposable stuff that we use and put it somewhere away, there is no away. We need to turn off the faucet. We need to turn off the tap and stop the stuff from flowing into the ocean.
But what about recycling? If everyone just throws their plastic away in the right bin, won't that help a lot?
Recycling is a bit of a myth. We really only recover very, very small % of our consumer plastics in this country.
Only certain types of plastic are recyclable, mainly the PET, polyethylene terephthalate, marked number 1, or HDPE, labeled number 2, high-density polyethylene. Most plastic doesn't truly get recycled. It gets downcycled. Unlike glass or metal, which can be used over and over again, plastic consumer products are usually converted to a lower-grade material and used for things like park benches and plastic decking. A lot of this process takes place overseas.
We ship a lot of our plastics to China, and we heard this from several recycling centers here in California.
In fact, according to the U.S. International Trade Commission, the fastest growing and now #1 category of American exports to China is scrap and trash.
If only about 30% of the bag comes from recycled content, that means you're still going to need 70% virgin material. Let's recognize that recycling isn't going to really offset production of virgin plastic, and it's going to take more than recycling to really deal with the kind of plastic pollution that we face.
Just to be clear, plastic is not evil, but it's what we do with it, how much we produce of it, and how we dispose of it that makes all the difference. It's the plastic that was made to last forever, but designed to be used once. That is the biggest problem. The two most common items we throw away are plastic bags and plastic bottles. It's estimated that on this planet, we use a whopping 1 million plastic bags a minute. If everyone in the United States tied their annual consumption of plastic bags together in a giant chain, that chain would reach around the Earth's equator 776 times. National Geographic estimates that we use 85 million bottles on this planet every 3 minutes. Since you sat down to watch this, 935 million bottles have been consumed. And do we really need them?
The answer is very simple. Let's stop it at the source.
Start thinking about areas to avoid plastic, buying in bulk, buying locally, shopping at your farmer's market, avoiding excess packaging, and really just being mindful of the things that you buy every day, because everything is going to go somewhere.
I think a lot of times we as consumers, individuals, we underestimate the power we really have.
It's a choice that we can all make to say, I don't need that lid on a coffee cup for 2 minutes, and I don't need that plastic bag to carry 3 things, all of which are already individually packaged.
Wanting to influence others is such a can of worms, you know. It's like, really, at the end of the day, you can't be telling anyone what to do, you know. People have to discover things themselves.
It's been a couple months now since I've done the BPA test, and we have Professor Vamsal here on Skype to tell me the results. Hi, how are you?
What our study is showing is that you definitely get exposed to bisphenol A by touching it. It definitely goes through the skin, and substantial amounts of it do so very rapidly. And it is going to your brain, it is going to other organs in the body, and you are getting absolutely massive amounts on your hand when you touch thermal paper.
Ooh.
Since World War II, we've had a dramatic increase of breast cancer. We've had a dramatic increase or decrease in the age of puberty. Girls are going into puberty earlier. Now we're seeing breast budding in girls at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. That's stimulated by estrogen and estrogen-like chemicals.
If you could have sat down and designed the most horrible chemical that would damage everything that it got near, this is what you would make.
To know that it had transferred pretty rapidly into my system, it's like, why weren't we told? Like, why did I not know about this?
The Flintstones has been brought to you by Winston, America's best-selling, best-tasting filter cigarette.
You can ask the same question of the tobacco industry. Why didn't we know that tobacco was carcinogenic earlier? And the reason is because it's not in the interest of the tobacco companies to show that their product is harmful.
And only Winston has it, up front where it counts.
There's an economic reason for us not finding out.
It's a strategy that is taken straight from the tobacco industry. You look at the names of the people, the lobbyists who are involved, the PR agencies that are involved. It's the same organizations.
It's incredibly important the way images that are used to make people feel like a company it really cares. You can put a little green leaf on a plastic bottle and call it an eco bottle to create an illusion. It's the same sort of ridiculous distribution of water in plastic. Most people, they look at it and they say, oh, it has a green leaf, it must be eco. Of course, they wouldn't lie.
Industry has known since the 50s that stuff leaches out of different plastics.
The industry continues to maintain that BPA and many other plastic additives are safe. They have created PR campaigns in support of BPA and have successfully lobbied against legislation to ban it, even in baby bottles and children's toys.
The first phase is to deny the problem, to cover it up, and then to delay. After we invented plastic and we're finding it where it shouldn't be, in our blood and inside the wildest animals, you got to say, let's do something about this.
A few cities in the US and countries around the world have passed legislation taxing or banning single-use plastic bags.
California uses 120,000 tons of plastic bags every year. It is estimated that 80% of all marine debris is plastic.
California's in trouble. And what are some Sacramento politicians focused on? Grocery bags.
The ACC came out in incredible force.
Blasting and running a bunch of PSAs that were negative and untruthful.
Higher taxes, fewer jobs, more bureaucrats.
People who have been in the legislature for a very long time have said they have never seen a lobbying effort like this one.
So who makes the plastic? In the United States, the producers of plastic resin, such as Dow Chemical, DuPont, and ExxonMobil, are represented by an umbrella organization called the American Chemistry Council, or the ACC. The many manufacturers that make products out of this resin are represented by the Society of Plastic Industries, or SPI.
The plastics industry is the third largest industry in this country, behind steel and cars. It's responsible for close to $400 billion in shipments. It's a big, big, big industry.
The ACC was about to co-sponsor an international conference on the subject of marine debris, and they said they would be glad to talk to me.
I know I've sent you a couple emails. I know you're probably really busy.
But a representative from the ACC had finally gotten back to me and decided not to contribute to the documentary. So I went to the conference anyways to see if I could speak with them in person. But they seemed to avoid me and did not wish to comment.
I don't think I'm that scary. I'm like a short Asian girl. What do you want from me? I really am just looking for some answers.
Why would the American Chemistry Council sponsor a conference focused on the environmental damage caused from the plastic they create?
At the Marine Debris Conference in Honolulu, you spoke, you're the keynote at it. What do you think it accomplished?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what it has accomplished. My word was enough talking. If we're not seeing action, it's another one of those blah blah gathering.
But I was determined to get someone from the plastics industry to talk to me.
So we just decided to buy a ticket, cruise on out here, see if we could talk to these people face to face and get some answers.
So I headed to an SPI convention.
This could be a very quick shoot. It's the first annual Processors Conference. There's a guy from the FDA talking, a guy from Coca-Cola, a guy from Merck. How do you think that the plastic industry is tackling reports about BPA and toxins and stuff?
Well, I think there are a lot of many sides to the argument.
For me, I look at the materials and make sure whatever we're using is safe to be in contact with food.
Oh. So like, what do you think about the whole BPA thing?
I don't really have an opinion on that.
Yes, you do.
Nope, I don't.
So you guys did the testing on the BPA?
No.
And what did you find?
Well, it's very low level.
Okay.
And it's very little significance. But
so you're not worried about it?
Not at all.
How safe is a food that's wrapped in plastic? You test it, you regulate it.
Are you dying from anything? Do you eat from plastic?
Yes.
All right, so there you go.
BPA is found in 93% of humans. Which doesn't that freak you out?
Its benefits, I think, outweigh
The secret is how responsible industry is. People self-regulate really well. Every trade organization that wants to grow their business, find out what are the obstacles to growing their business, and there's always a regulatory part of it.
Is that why they're very protective of the conferences?
Because there's a lot of people with alternate agendas.
And what do you think about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch?
I don't know anything about it.
Have you heard of it?
No.
Or It's like that thing that's twice the size of Texas. People think it's an island.
I'm from Wisconsin.
Oh, Great Pacific Garbage Patch. There it is, right there.
Roughly the size of Texas, 3.5 million tons. This could be a guy in his underwear in the basement writing this. So why do I believe this?
I took it.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
Don't you think that if the industry's making 115 billion pounds of resin a year brand new, that they should also take responsibility from the beginning to the end?
It's hard to say.
I'm just wondering, like, what you think from...
What is that?
Well, it's a bird with plastic in its belly.
Well, that's not good.
I know. So I'm just
Pretty
wondering...
dumb bird. Shouldn't be eating plastic.
I went to Midway Atoll, like in the middle of the Pacific, and that's what I found. Like that was, I mean, what do you say to that?
My family's been in business for 100 years. We employ 1,800 people around the world and provide them with good jobs. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that plastics are horrible and evil. I can't.
Okay, so here's another picture.
I really don't like where this is going.
Okay.
I'd really like to see you erase that, please. Not recording.
Oh. Sorry.
Can you come over here for a second?
Yeah.
The client is upset.
You leave the property.
Oh, okay.
If we catch you back on property, we'll have you criminally trespassed.
Okay. Well, that was a really close call.
Plastic.
So how do we get people's attention? This is Andy Keller.
Oh my God! It's the bag monster.
Hey there. It all started when I was at the local landfill in my community, about 100,000 people, and I was there at the end of the day with, my trash, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh, this is so unnecessary. Why am I using these? Oh, you environmentalists! Don't you know I'm convenient? I created the Bag Monster because I wanted to communicate to people like how many plastic bags they use in a year.
How many bags do you have on you?
This is what the average American uses in a year. The estimates are somewhere between 300 to 700 by every American. A lot of people are just in this robot mode, and they're just like, how many times have you bought a drink and a snack and then put it in a bag? I found if you could approach it in a way that's funny and humorous, but also raises awareness that people can actually then take action and not close down.
Hey, I'm Gretchen Bleiler. I'm a professional snowboarder and an Olympian, but I'm also an advocate for the environment. I feel like it's my duty to talk about this. It can be very simple, and it's just about taking a little shift. So it's all about leading by example and encouraging your friends to do the same.
Personally, I live in Hawaii, which if you go to the east shore of any of the islands, a lot of the beaches are just a wall of plastic trash, and so I just know the reality of how harmful single-use plastics are, with all the 20-something-year-olds coming to the shows and different people who are still kind of figuring out the way they're going to be in the world. We just saw the opportunity to have these nonprofit groups in every town that we play at. I think for me personally, just the way I was brought up and everything,
Right.
it's I feel a personal responsibility, but I just like to use that to kind of turn kids on to the idea of these environmental groups and what they're doing.
So the albatross, they are consuming all this plastic debris that they find floating on the ocean.
Kids have a natural sense of justice. When we show them what our plastic trash is doing to animals out in the middle of the ocean, they get really angry and they want to do something about it.
They get that it's not what they want in their world.
In one of his early experiments, Professor Vom Saal found that BPA could cause reproductive harm in mice at levels 25,000 times lower than previously thought.
And when we published that, I got a conference call, and there were about 5 people on it, and they told me how disturbed. So they were from DuPont, Dow, Shell, all the major manufacturers of bisphenol A. And the exact quote is, can we reach a mutually beneficial outcome where you withdraw this paper and do not publish it until approved to do so by the chemical industry?
We're here at the American Chemistry Council near Washington, D.C. These are the guys that spend millions of dollars all across the country suing cities who try to put bans or fees on plastic bags.
What I've done essentially is I've made myself a target. I'm an advocate out there. And so I don't even know how to say this, but I'm being sued now by the plastics industry. Basically the three main plastic bag manufacturers, like the largest, most, basically the advocates on the other side, you know, have filed a lawsuit against me. They are able to, as a business, to say, well, you're harming our business by talking about our product. But me, it's like, I'm just a guy, small business, you know, California entrepreneur, you know, against this huge mammoth of the industry with these big companies, you know, with millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like I'm a little fly on their wall, and they're just like.
But will more awareness of the problem and efforts like this really make a difference?
The air that we breathe, 60% of it comes from the ocean, the oxygen. That the ocean has the ability to come back quickly. It's like a rubber band. If you push a rubber band, it'll snap back pretty quickly. That's where we're in now. But if you push it too far, it'll break.
By 2050, worldwide plastic production is projected to quadruple, reaching nearly 2 trillion pounds per year. So where will we be in 30 years? What will our future look like?
It's our choice. And I don't want to play that game and see, well, how far can it take?
This is a moment that is unlike any other moment in history. The options are fewer than there were 20 years ago.
So with my knowledge in head and my reusable bag in hand, I realized that it's not that hard to make simple changes. And it's not that hard to say no to unnecessary plastic.
Like a bag? Oh, no, that's okay. I'll just take it, yeah.
It's taken us a long time to learn that what we throw away doesn't really go away.
When you get this letter, please write back to me. Miss Duncan, 3rd grade, Long Beach, California.
Mark Twain Elementary, that's what we're looking for. It's funny that I would go halfway around the world to find a letter that would bring me like 20 miles away from my house back at home.
Sincerely, number 16. It's pretty amazing. This just shows them, this is proof. Sometimes we don't think that far in advance of the impact things have.
Oh, dang, it stinks.
There's no solution to marine debris except for at its source. And so the story has to be told because the solution doesn't lie with the people here.
What's happening on Midway is like the canary in the coal mine. The debris that's washing up on our beaches, that patch of garbage in the Pacific is growing. And right now it's having a huge impact on Midway. And a huge impact on the species that call Midway home.
The issue of plastic pollution in the ocean is more timely than ever. Many experts are predicting that debris from the March 2011 tsunami that devastated Japan is now headed on a direct course to hit Midway Atoll and the west coast of North America in the upcoming months and years.
People are an apex predator. We're eating fish out of these oceans, and if plastics are prevalent and if their toxins are working their way up the food chain, that has an impact on us. And it's going to start affecting animals and people, not just on remote places like Midway, but in the entire world, from Los Angeles to Hong Kong.
It is not one country's problem over another, but we as mankind are all intertwined.
This world of the molecule belongs to us all. It is yours to explore, your new frontier.
Dust off your thinking caps, solar powered plastic plants, pretty pictures of things we ate. We're only what we hate. But in the long run we have found silent films are full of sound, inaudibly free. Slow down everyone, you're moving too fast. Frames can't catch you when you're moving like that. Inaudible melodies of narrational strategies, unobtrusive tones help to notice nothing but the zone of visual relevancy. Frame lines tell me what to see, chopping like an axle. Maybe Eisenstein should just relax. Slow down everyone, you're moving too fast. Frames can't catch you when you're moving like that. Plato's cave is full of freaks, demanding refunds for the things they've seen. I wish they could believe in all the things that never made the screen. And just slow down everyone, you're moving too fast.